In this iceberg, we'll be uncovering some of the most obscure and unknown mysteries of Elden Ring's deepest iceberg, starting with more common knowledge, all the way down to some theories that might change the way you look at Elden Ring's lore forever. Now, I didn't compile this iceberg, that credit goes to the Reddit user St. Paul Jim, and some of these will be a bit dated, but I'll try my best to keep them as up to date as I can. Since the first tier is pretty much common knowledge, I'll only be skimming over it quickly. Like for example that Miyazaki has a foot fetish, which is quite prevalent in the games at times, or that the game caused heavy performance issues upon release. Or also, very obviously, everybody who uses Spirit Ashes, and especially Mimic tier, is basically cheating or playing the game on easy mode and deserves no recognition for beating it whatsoever. Now, moving on into the second tier of the iceberg, to start off we have Friendly Doggo. This likely refers to the dog located in Leyendell, which unlike other enemies doesn't attack you when you start to approach it. Instead, it only becomes hostile once you attack it first. Now, while this is likely due to a typo in the code rather than an intended game mechanic, as Zully the Witch put it best, sometimes a happy accident can be more memorable than if everything went as planned and lead to new friendships. Feel free to go die in a ditch somewhere is a memorable line delivered to you by the first NPC you ever meet in the game. Now, while other games usually encourage you, telling you that you're the only hope to save the world, FromSoft didn't sugarcoat anything, basically preparing you for the cruel world that the lands between are. Another one of his iconic lines, for example, is calling you maidenless. I feel like this YouTube comment summarizes this dialogue perfectly. You're a punk, you get no bitches, die in a hole. Oh, you don't have the right. 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 Rana is Rani. Or not? When you first meet Rani, she gives you a fake name, using Rana as a pseudonym. Some believe this is just a short version of the name Renala, who is Rani's mother, but the actual origin of the name Rana stems from Rani's secret mentor, which we'll get to much later into the iceberg. For now, all you have to know is that technically, you'd be half correct in assuming Rena is Rani, because as we know, Rani's physical body was killed by herself, and the doll that her soul inhabits is now modeled after the Snow Witch Rena, who is Rani's secret mentor. We are now moving on to tier 3 of the iceberg, and we're gonna—
I am Melina, Blade of Mikola.
No, I was almost over you. I thought I'd never have to hear that again. Big Bird is the lore-accurate name for this massive abomination of hell you encounter upon taking a single wrong turn in the starting area and somehow find yourself in Caelid, which ironically translates to heaven, or sky in Latin. I remember being literally petrified when I first saw this bird on my first playthrough. It's the fuel of literal nightmares. A Reddit user also suggested the theory that these crows might have turned out this way due to scavenging and consuming dead dragons found in Caelid, which, similarly to Dragon Communion in the game, may have caused the crows to mutate, since many of their features, like their long, overlapping, narrow black teeth, and also their silhouette, vaguely resemble the ones of dragons found in Caelid. Face of Godwyn. Deep down in the depths of Stormveil Castle, you can find the face of Godwyn, Prince of Death, son of Radagon and Marika. After his assassination on the Night of the Black Lives, his soul was killed, but not his body. It lived on, causing his corpse to become a festering source of deathroot corruption, spreading all throughout the lands between. We can actually find Godwyn's roots and influence in many parts of Elden Ring and its DLC. Part of him being located in the depths of Stormveil Castle ties in with the castle's themes of death, corruption, and failed attempts at immortality by Godric the Grafted. Melina lives. I think this probably refers to the Frenzied Flame ending, in which Melina doesn't sacrifice herself, instead vowing to seek revenge since you betrayed her sole purpose and motivation. Going for the Frenzied Flame ending isn't just choosing an alternate path to hers, it's straight up rejecting the greater will and all order which she essentially lives for. So after that, she pretty much lives on to hunt you down and get revenge. Although many players probably choose this ending to save Melina from dying, all you do is betray her purpose even more. The next point on the iceberg is Radahn good, Melania bad. Now, explaining this requires me to go back a bit further into Elden Ring's lore. As we all know, throughout the lore of Elden Ring, the Outer Gods are one of the most prevalent themes presented to us. Outer Gods like the Greater Will, which enforces the Golden Order, the Frenzied Flame, and of course the God of Rot. These outer gods don't just exist in concept, they manifest in the lands between through vessels. The most obvious example is the Elden Beast, a divine servant of the greater will, acting as a physical enforcer of the Golden Order. But long ago, the god of Rot had its own vessel, a massive scorpion that had long since been defeated. With its influence fading, the god of Rot sought a new vessel to spread its will, and that's where Melina comes in. The god of Rot isn't just about decay, it's about a twisted form of rebirth and immortality. Those afflicted by rot don't just die, they persist, trapped in an eternal cycle of suffering. And as its vessel, Melina is a walking embodiment of that paradox, both beautiful and terrifying. A warrior of unmatched grace, but also a force of complete devastation. So where does Radahn fit into this? Well, during the Shattering, when all the demigods were fighting for control, Melina marched her army into Caelid in pursuit of her brother Miquella's dream. Radahn, the strongest of the demigods, stood in her way, not out of greed for power, but because he was defending his people, his land, and his kingdom. Their battle is one of the most legendary in the game, ending in a stalemate, until Melina, backed into a corner, unleashed her trump card, Scarlet Rot, and with that single act, she didn't just defeat Radahn, she doomed Caelid itself, turning the land into a hellscape of corruption and suffering. This is where the morality debate kicks in. Many see Radahn as a noble defender, a hero who gave everything to protect his land. Even as he succumbed to madness, his knights never abandoned him, his people still honored him, and even after losing his mind, he clung to what little was left of himself. On the other hand, Melina's actions left nothing but destruction in her wake. Whether or not it was intentional, she spread an uncontrollable plague, leaving Caelid to rot, while she simply walked away. She shows no remorse, no acknowledgement of the devastation, only loyalty to Miquella and her purpose. But it's not black and white. Radahn, for all his strength, was still a warlord, a conqueror, a servant of the greater will. And Melina, despite the destruction she brings, is also a victim of her own curse. So, is Radahn good and Melina bad? That depends on how you see it. Radahn fought for his people and the Golden Order, which by many is seen as an oppressive force in the lands between, causing much harm and suffering to others. And Melina, she fought for her brother. She never chose to be the Rot's vessel, but was cursed by it since birth. But in the end, one became a tragic guardian of a ruined kingdom, while the other walked away, leaving only decay in her path. Rykard will return. After fighting Margit, he tells you that eventually he will return, and he does, being the final demigod to stand between you and the Erdtree. Now upon defeating him, Rykard says something similar. And indeed, if you go back to the boss arena after killing him, you will find Lady Tanith eating away at his lively, moving flesh, asking Rykard to find purchase within her body, so that one day they may devour the gods together, heavily implying that she wants to help him return to former glory by eating him. That's pretty cool and scary if you ask me. Now, you can kill Lady Tanith right then and there, likely preventing her plans from ever coming into fruition. But who knows what might happen if you don't set an end to them right then and there. Additionally, Rykard's flesh is still moving, almost looking like it's regenerating. So maybe even without Lady Tanith's help, he will eventually return to the lands between to devour the gods together. One interesting thing to note is that Rykard fused with the god-devouring serpent, a being that seems to embody endless consumption and rebirth. If his will persists beyond death, his return isn't just speculation, it might be inevitable. With that, we move into Tier 4 of the Iceberg, Multiverse. The multiverse theory in Elden Ring likely refers to a viral Reddit thread that sparked debate, proposing that some of the game's endings serve as the origins of other FromSoftware titles. According to this theory, each ending fractures reality, birthing different universes, and possibly leading into the worlds of Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Demon Souls. Take the Frenzied Flame ending, for example. In this path, the Tarnished is tasked with burning away the world, reducing it and all suffering, sin, and order to ash. The goal? To unite everything into one chaotic whole, much like the Age of the Crucible, a time before the Elden Ring, when all life was one seething, formless mass. Theory suggests that this is the catalyst for the Dark Souls universe. After the Tarnished burns everything to nothingness, the dragons, now free from the Golden Order's rule, rise to reclaim the world. But from the cinders of the Frenzied Flame, thought to be long extinguished, a new fire is kindled, one that eventually leads to Gwyn's Age of Fire. So with now dragons in control, Gwyn rises to rebel against the dragons in Dark Souls, marking the start of that world's cycle. Then there's the Age of Stars ending. Here Ranni erases the influence of the Outer Gods, leaving the world without a true lord or guiding order for an entire age. But perhaps this wasn't a clean break. Maybe this age of cold detachment caused the Outer Gods to slowly fade into obscurity. Over time, their power dwindled and their existence forgotten, until long after Ranni's death, new, unknowable gods reawakened, clawing their way back into reality. This, the theory suggests, paved the way for the eldritch horrors of Bloodborne. The Pthumerians may have stumbled upon these forgotten entities, gaining unnatural knowledge and power, thus birthing a new nightmare, the world of Bloodborne. And then there's the Age of Duskborn ending. This path sees the Tarnished stripping the world of immortality, restoring the natural cycle of life and death. With destined death returned, souls become more significant, powerful, coveted. The foggy, lifeless atmosphere of this ending bears an eerie resemblance to demon souls, where souls are harvested and fought over like currency. The theory suggests that once mortality was restored, demons, drawn to the power of souls, began to emerge, feeding on the essence of the dead to grow stronger, much like in Boletaria's descent into ruin. If you want to know more about this theory, because of course I couldn't cover every single detail in this short summary, I highly recommend you check out this video. Whether this theory holds weight or not, there's something unsettling about the idea that every choice in Elden Ring could be a doorway to another nightmare, each ending shaping a new, twisted reality where history is doomed to repeat itself in ever-worsening cycles of fire, decay, and madness. Age of Absolute. The Age of Absolute refers to a secret ending that was restored using data mining, since the questline leading to it was cut from the game in major part, with only remnants left in the game. It's very cryptic, and all that I could find regarding it was a custom-created cutscene by a fan that you can see playing in the background right now. Not much is known about the ending, except for the voice line Age of Absolute being found in the game, and apparently it's an alternative version to the Age of Order ending. For a long time, people didn't know the quest leading to it was cut content, and were desperately trying to meet the conditions to trigger this ending. Why it was cut from the game? I don't know, and I doubt we'll ever get the answer. Rennala is delusional. This point likely refers to her mental state after Radagon leaves her and the obsession with rebirth that follows. After Radagon abandoned Rennala to become Marika's consort, she fell into deep despair and slowly lost herself. Instead of ruling over the Academy of Raya Lucaria like she once did, she was locked away in the Grand Library, spending her days cradling an amber egg gifted to her by Radagon. This egg, which contains an incomplete Great Rune, allows her to recreate life, but only in a flawed way. Her rebirths result in creatures that are fragile, short-lived, or malformed. Her delusion can be looked at from a bunch of different angles in my opinion. For one, she refuses to let go of Radagon and his betrayal, instead isolating herself, with nobody to help her move on or face reality. Actually, quite the opposite is the case, with her students only enabling her delusion even more, still treating her like their revered queen, instead of the mentally broken person she has become. Rennala's obsession with rebirth ties in with her desire to restore what's lost. She was abandoned by all her loved ones, first her husband and then her daughter. But the tragedy is that her rebirths don't really work. The children she creates are malformed, frail, and fleeting. And yet she keeps trying. She keeps whispering lullabies to the children of her failed experiments, cradling that amber egg trapped in a cycle of hope and delusion. Mages can resurrect. The claim that mages can resurrect doesn't have much direct evidence in Elden Ring, as we rarely see mages bring themselves or others back to life. However, there are a few things this could be referencing. One instance stood out to me in particular. Sorceress Selene was expelled from the Academy of Raya Lucaria for defying its teachings and attempting to restore the primeval current of glintstone sorcery. Studying these forbidden arts was outlawed, so when the Academy discovered her research, she was exiled. We later find her, and if we choose, we can become her apprentice. At one point, Selene explains that while golden amber contains the remnants of ancient life and vitality, glintstone, the material she studies, holds the life essence of the stars. Eventually, she reveals that the Selene we've been speaking to is merely an illusion, and that her real body is shackled and hidden elsewhere by the Academy. She sends us to find it, and when we do, she entrusts us with her primal glintstone, asking us to keep it safe. This primal glintstone is essentially Selen's soul. The item description states that if implanted into a compatible body, the sorcerer will rise again. If we revisit her original body, we find that she has been killed by witch hunter Jaren. However, later in Seluvi's questline, we come across a lifeless puppet, an exact replica of Selen. If we implant her primal glintstone into this puppet, she returns to life, inhabiting the new body. This process allows mages to cheat death by transferring their consciousness into another form. However, I wouldn't necessarily call it true resurrection. It's more like a transfer of the soul, rather than revival of the original body. Painted world. The most popular idea of Elden Ring being a painted world is the theory that the original creator of the Lands Between is Arya, the girl from the Dark Souls 3 DLC who possessed the ability to seemingly create entire worlds by painting them. The theory is raised from the last interaction with Arya we have in the DLC, when her entire area is burning and she sits in the attic, painting one last picture. We are given the option to hand her the blood of the Dark Soul. With this, she intends to paint a new world for everybody to escape into. If you choose to give her your name, she will name this painting after you, but if you don't, then she will name it Ash. Interestingly enough, we can find a bunch of pictures scattered throughout the world of Elden Ring, but none of them are called Ash or anything of that sort. Although one of the pictures is called Resurrection, so you could say maybe resurrection comes out of ash like a phoenix, or something like that. But that's just trying to find any sort of connection between them. Another thing people say that claim this theory is that the motif of Arya's painting could somewhat resemble that of a tree. But she also says the place she's drawing will be a cold, dark, and very gentle one, which Elden Ring is certainly not. While there's certainly patterns that might draw similarities between Arya and the paintings in Elden Ring, there's no real grounds to really give this theory validity. Merchants stuck. If you've ventured into the depths of Leyendell, you're likely to have stumbled upon the countless dried up corpses of what seemed to be nomadic merchants once upon a time. A long time ago, these merchants were their own separate group of people, a thriving nomadic culture known as the Great Caravan. But with the rise of the Golden Order, any culture that differed from the Great Will was to be suppressed and eradicated. Accused of heretical beliefs, their entire clan was rounded up and buried alive deep down underground in the depths of Leyendell, with a few exceptions being the few nomadic merchants we meet scattered in some parts of the world. Buried alive in the depths below Leyendell, the merchants in their desperation chanted a curse of despair and summoned the Flame of Frenzy. The one that if you choose to follow that path will lead you to take down the Golden Order and engulf the whole world in the flames of frenzy. With that, we're moving into Tier 5 of the Iceberg. Rennala boss mobs are Ranni clones. When first finding and confronting Rennala, we find that she is surrounded by countless scholars, which we know she has created herself using her Amber Egg of Rebirth. The claim that they are Ranni clones probably stems from the theory that after being abandoned by Ranni, she desperately tried regaining what was lost with her daughter. So we're basically saying that she tried recreating Ranni by birthing all these broken, cursed children. Ranni's physical body before her transformation into the doll may have somewhat resembled these children, apart from Ranni having red hair. Radagon is Marika. This is probably the most well-known theory in the entire game. Yet at the same time, it's one of the most misunderstood and confusing. The idea that two seemingly separate people are in fact the same entity has puzzled lore hunters since Elden Ring's release. From a narrative standpoint, the revelation comes late in the game, when we reach the Erdtree Sanctuary and discover a statue of Radagon transforming into Marika. The game never directly explains how this paradox works, only confirming that Radagon and Marika are one and the same. So what does this actually mean? Some assume it's a metaphor. Maybe they're two halves of a single being, representing duality, or even just two different identities occupying the same body. But there's a reason to believe this is not just symbolic. The evidence suggests that they are quite literally one person split between two existences, with a purpose that's still heavily debated. The biggest contradiction in this theory is that, at least at one point in time, they must have been separate people. We know that Radagon was once the husband of Rennala, fathering Ranni, Rykard and Radahn, while Marika was still ruling over Leyendell as the vessel of the Elden Ring. How could they be the same entity if they existed in two places at once, each leading completely separate lives? Then there's the question of their roles. We know that Marika shattered the Elden Ring, while Radagon, as her consort, tried to repair it. Was Radagon truly opposing Marika's actions, or was this part of a greater plan? An eternal cycle where one half destroys and the other half restores, ensuring that nothing ever truly changes. But perhaps the most chilling implication comes from the idea that Marika and Radagon were able to have children, most notably Miquella and Melina. If they are the same being, then their offspring would be the result of an impossible paradox, a child born from a single parent. This could explain why both twins are cursed, one with rot, the other trapped in eternal youth. Perhaps a consequence of being created by a fractured, incomplete being. Ultimately, the mystery of Marika and Radagon remains one of the biggest unsolved pieces of Elden Ring's lore. Were they truly separate at first and later merged into one? Did the greater will split Marika into two entities to serve different functions? Or was this paradox always meant to exist? An eternal contradiction at the heart of the Golden Order. Whatever the truth is, it seems like Marika, or whatever she really was, never wanted us to find out. The Erdtree is a parasite. At first glance, the Erdtree seems like a divine beacon of order and life, but beneath its golden splendor, a darker truth lingers. One that suggests the Erdtree is not a blessing, but a parasitic invader. Before the Erdtree, there was the Great Tree of the Crucible, tied to an ancient, untamed era, where life was chaotic and unrestricted. The Crucible Knights, remnants of this forgotten age, wield abilities that hint at a time before the Golden Order rewrote history. Buried roots beneath Leyndell, and item descriptions referencing an era before the Erdtree suggest that this ancient tree wasn't merely replaced, it was consumed. The Erdtree roots spread deep, not just into the land, but into history itself, erasing the past and enforcing the greater will's control. It demands devotion, rewriting the world in its image, while draining what came before. Even the tarnished are merely pawns in its grand design, guided by its so-called grace. If the Erdtree is a parasite, then what does that make the Elden Ring? A divine instrument? Or just another tool of domination? One thing is certain, the Erdtree did not always belong here, and beneath its golden radiance, something ancient still lingers, waiting to be remembered. Before going into Tier 6, there's 2 more points on this tier, but we've already covered both of them in part. First off, Elden Ring is a prequel. I think once again this refers back to that theory that the events of Elden Ring predate and even kickstart the events of Dark Souls. For example, the seeds of the Erdtree might have sprouted long after the end of Elden Ring and turned into what we know as the Archtrees, that are the pillars of the world in Dark Souls 1. The other point on the iceberg we've already covered in part is Rennala is immortal. I don't really know why people think that. Maybe this theory arose when people wondered why she was still there after we defeat her. However, it's confirmed that the second phase is just a sort of illusionary trap set by Ranni to protect her mother. Another theory could involve the Egg of Amber she holds. This egg, gifted to her by Radagon, is tied to Queen Marika's power and allows rebirth. But maybe it's also what keeps Rennala alive. Despite being abandoned and broken, she never withers away, just trapped in her delusions of motherhood. With that, we begin our venture into Tier 6. Ranni's body. While there's nothing new about the body, Ranni's corpse can actually be found at the top of the Divine Tower of Liurnia, and is the product of her attempts trying to get rid of the influence of the Two Fingers and the protection of her wolf blight. In that act, she kills both the soul of Godwyn in the Night of the Black Knives, but also her own mortal flesh to free herself from the grasp of the Two Fingers. Upon closer examination, we can tell from her corpse that she had red hair just like her father Radagon. Additionally, she has a very similar sort of scar mark on her back, just like Godwyn, which probably refers to the Rune of Death. And lastly, we can see that she's wearing pieces of jewelry. I imagine it's Carian jewelry passed down from her mother or something of that sort. Ranni's death is a secret. On that Night of the Black Knives, the death of Ranni's body remained closely guarded secret, to the point that almost no one in the lands between knew it had even happened. Unlike Godwyn, whose half-death was visible to the world and corrupted the Erdtree, Ranni's body was simply abandoned, and her spirit escaped into a doll, continuing her existence in secret. Even the assassins themselves likely didn't know the full consequences of their actions. The Black Knife assassins were hired by Ranni herself, but they only aimed to kill Godwin. However, because of the nature of the Rune of Death, it claimed both him and Ranni in a strange, twisted way. Her fate was never made public. Unlike other demigods who vied for power in the wake of the Shattering, Ranni vanished, leaving behind nothing but whispers. Many likely believed she had simply disappeared, making her continued existence a true secret within the world of Elden Ring. Jellyfish are dead children. Very early on in Elden Ring, we receive the spirit jellyfish ashes from Roderica at the shack near Stormvale Castle. The jellyfish we summon is named Aurelia, as noted in the item description. Much later in the game, deep within the mountaintops of the Giants, we come across another jellyfish, Aurelette, who calls out longingly, saying she misses her sister and is searching for home. If we summon Aurelia beside her, the two spirits will recognize each other and share a heartwarming reunion. But this seemingly innocent moment takes a dark turn. Not far from where they reunite, two small, unmarked tombstones stand side by side, engraved with a chilling epitaph. Here lie Aurelia and Aurelette, who never saw the stars. This suggests that the spirit jellyfish are the souls of deceased children, forever wandering the lands between, longing for the lives they were never able to live. It also explains why jellyfish are often seen gazing at the sky, perhaps still dreaming of something they never got to see in life. Ranni was adopted? Some players have proposed theories suggesting that Ranni might not be Renella's biological daughter, but rather her adoptive child. This theory basically suggests that Ranni was created using the Amber Egg, the great rune of the unborn, that Radagon gifted to Renella. This perspective suggests that Radagon and Marika produced the Amber Egg, from which Melina was also created. Renella then used this egg to bring forth Ranni, presenting her to the world as her youngest child. This interpretation implies that while Renella raised Ranni, she might not be her biological mother. Supporters of this theory also point out that Ranni is an Empyrean, a being chosen by the Greater Will as a potential successor to Queen Marika. The criteria for being an Empyrean are not entirely clear, but it's suggested that having a single god as a parent is a requirement. This has led to speculation that Ranni's origin might be more complex than her being the natural offspring of Radagon and Renella. While these theories offer intriguing possibilities, it's important to note that they are speculative. The game provides limited explicit information regarding Ranni's exact origins, leaving much to player interpretation. As with many aspects of Elden Ring's lore, the truth about Ranni's parentage remains shrouded in mystery, encouraging players to explore and theorize based on the clues scattered throughout the game. Two fingers still alive. Now, this is something weird that I didn't really think about until I came across it. Why are Ranni's two fingers the only ones still alive? Every other demigod's fingers are dead, either decayed or outright missing. The only exceptions are our two fingers in the round table hold and Ranni's, which are very much alive until she kills them. But this raises a huge unanswered question in Elden Ring. Why are all the fingers dead? Who killed them? There's actually a huge conspiracy that I'll get into in the next tier of the Iceberg that might shed more light on that. And while I don't think we'll ever get an answer to that, we can speculate about why Ranni's fingers in specific are still alive. Now, I've seen a theory that actually ties in Radahn and the fate of the stars, and it might explain why Ranni's fingers managed to survive when all the others died. Basically, the idea is that Radahn, being this last loyalist of the Golden Order, tried to protect Ranni's fingers by sending them into space. Sounds wild, right? But there's actually some logic to it. We already know that Radahn held back the stars for who knows how long, essentially stopping fate for the Carian family itself from moving forward. Ranni's whole destiny is tied to overthrowing the Greater Will, so her two fingers obviously would have been trying to guide her back into its control. If Radahn really was acting as the Greater Will's last line of defense, then it's possible he wasn't just holding back fate, he might have also been keeping Ranni's fingers locked away in the stars, preventing her from ever defying them. Now here's where it gets interesting. When we kill Radahn, the stars finally fall, and that includes the one that crashes into the Eternal City, revealing the Fingerslayer's blade, the very weapon Ranni uses to kill her own two fingers. If this theory is right, then Ranni's fingers might have been stuck in space the whole time, and when Radahn died, they finally fell back down to the lands between, landing in that exact spot where we find them. If you look at the area where Ranni and her two fingers are, it's actually reasonable to believe they could have fallen out of the sky. It looks crashed, broken, like something that came from above and landed violently. So if it's true, then Radahn wasn't just stopping fate for the Carians like Ranni, he was also delaying Ranni's rebellion for as long as he possibly could. But once we put him down, fate comes crashing back to reality, and Ranni is finally able to end her connection to the Greater Will once and for all. Pretty insane to think about, but it actually makes a ton of sense. With that, we're moving into tier 7 of the Iceberg. Two Fingers Propaganda. Alright, so let's get into the theory I hinted at before that might offer some insight into why all the fingers are dead. So I was scrolling through Reddit and stumbled upon one of the wildest Elden Ring theories I've ever seen. And honestly, it kind of makes too much sense. Basically, the theory suggests that the two fingers we interact with throughout the game aren't real. They're fakes, possibly created by Marika herself. That would mean everything we've been told about them, their role as messengers of the Greater Will, their authority in choosing gods, their connection to the Elden Ring, it's all a lie. At first it sounds like complete nonsense, but the more you dig into the details, the more it starts to add up. So let's break it down. The biggest clue comes from Ranni's dead two fingers. If you compare them to the ones in the Round Table Hold or the Divine Towers, there's huge differences. Ranni's two fingers are smooth, bluish, grey and look eerily similar to the Finger Creepers and Meteor, the Mother of Fingers, a horrifying creature introduced in the DLC. But the fingers that serve the Greater Will, they're beige, grey, rotten, ending in weird stumps and even covered in hair. And that's the thing, nothing else in the game associated with the fingers has hair like them. So why would they look so different? Some have suggested that maybe the two fingers naturally decay over time. But Ranni's fingers show no signs of rotting, even though they're pretty much the longest living ones, and if we compare them to the Round Table Hold ones, even those show hair. That suggests that Ranni's fingers are the last real two fingers, while the ones guiding the Tarnished aren't original at all. So if they're fake, where did they come from? Well, that's where things get even crazier. The theory suggests that these fake fingers were cut from the hands of the fallen giants, and weirdly enough, the game kind of supports this. If you look around the mountaintops of the giants, you'll notice that most of the impaled fire giants are missing their hands. But there's one near the forge that still has its hand, except it's missing two fingers. That alone is super suspicious. And to make things even weirder, if you examine the last fire giant, the one guarding the forge, his own two fingers are rotting, like they were removed and badly reattached or something. So the idea is that Marika at some point realized she wasn't actually a god, she was just a vessel. The Greater Will was never making her divine, it was just using her to enforce its control, and at some point she decided to rebel. But instead of outright destroying the two fingers, which would have made her intentions obvious, she replaced them with puppets she could manipulate herself, using the severed fingers of fire giants. And this actually explains a lot. The two fingers act weird throughout the entire game. They writhe around awkwardly. Their gestures make no sense, and they seem increasingly desperate as things progress. If they were truly divine messengers, why would they be in such a state of decay? Why would they be breaking down and losing power? But if they were really just decaying remains of fire giants, it suddenly makes perfect sense. Also, why they have such weird hair that is pretty commonly found on fire giants. Now here's where the theory gets even crazier, because we can tie it into the theory from earlier with Radahn, where Radahn tried to save Ranni's two fingers from her destroying them and lifted them into space. But in doing so, he would have also put them out of reach from Marika, who at this point was trying to replace all fingers. This would explain why Ranni's are the last authentic fingers, because Radahn saved them. So if this theory is right, then the whole time we thought we were serving the Greater Will, we were actually just following Marika's cover-up. We weren't receiving guidance from an all-powerful cosmic force. We were following fake prophets, lifeless husks being used to maintain Marika's secret control over the lands. And Radahn, in his desperate attempt to prevent Ranni's fate, might have also been the one person who unknowingly stopped Marika's plan from succeeding. And in my opinion, it's crazy how much speaks for this theory. While we can't ever really confirm it, I think it's really cool to think about. Age of Stars brings free will. In the Age of Stars ending, Ranni seeks to rid the world of the influence of the outer gods and usher in a new Age of Stars. The greater will enforces its rule through the two fingers, controlling destinies, appointing gods, and keeping mortals in an endless cycle of servitude. Meanwhile, Marika, while rebelling against the greater will, wasn't truly freeing people either. Instead, she manipulated the world from the shadows, replacing the two fingers to maintain her own control. Ranni, on the other hand, represents breaking free from the system entirely. The Age of Stars is the only ending where true free will exists. Every other ending still keeps the lands between bound by some kind of divine order. Choosing to mend the Elden Ring, whether through the standard path or variations like the Age of Dustborn or Age of Order, means continuing the cycle that has controlled life for centuries. Even the frenzied flame, despite its chaotic nature, is still a force imposing its will upon the world. But the Age of Stars? It's the only ending where fate itself is erased. Ranni outright rejects the two fingers, refusing to be a puppet of the greater will. Unlike Marika, who simply wanted to reshape the world under her own rule, Ranni abandons control entirely, disappearing into the cosmos and taking the last remnants of outer gods' influence with her. She doesn't install herself as a queen or dictate a new law. Instead, she creates a world where mortals are free from divine manipulation, where they can finally live by their own choices, for better or for worse. That's what makes the Age of Stars ending so unique. It's not about replacing one god with another, it's about removing gods from the equation entirely. Secret Gideon ending. The Secret Gideon Ofnir ending is one of the most obscure and bizarre endings in the game, and near to nothing is known about it. Even well over 3 years into the game's history, players have not been able to discover all of the cryptic meanings hidden in the dialogue, and I'd be lying if I said I figured it out myself. So I'll just play it for you guys, let it sink in, and let me know if there's anything you can deduct from the secret dialogue.
There you are, Tarnished. I've been expecting you. I know it may seem strange. I'll tell you, it is an ancient rite, now known only to me. Aye, 'tis a cardinal sin, but what of it? Not even the two fingers could resist. Tarnished, I am not ashamed. Power like this does not come without sacrifice. No matter what the cost, I will become Elden Lord.
But on a real note, Gideon is a character who sees meaning of life in the endless struggle posed upon you by Marika, which he mentions in voice lines like, "Queen Marika has high hopes for us, that we continue to struggle unto eternity." He also said, "A tarnished cannot become a lord, not even you. A man cannot kill a god." So players speculate this ending refers to not being able to beat the game, continuing the endless struggle of not being able to become Elden Lord. So you could say that every player who laid down the game and never picked it up again due to getting frustrated or something, and in turn never beat the game, have actually just completed Gideon's ending of endless struggle. If you never become Elden Lord, then in a way, Gideon was right. A tarnished cannot become a lord. By giving up, you become trapped in the endless struggle he describes, proving that the game itself is an unwinnable cycle for some. Ranni's teacher. Renna the Snow Witch is probably one of the most mysterious characters in the entirety of Elden Ring. Few characters have reached her level of mystery while being as important to the story as she is. The little we know about Renna is scattered throughout the vague item descriptions and short dialogues mentioning her. From these we can learn a few things for certain. For one, when Ranni met Renna at a young age in the forest, she became her mentor, teaching her about snow magic and to fear the dark moon. However, the Dark Moon was a very rare sorcery passed on to Ranni by only her mother, Rennala. So how could Renna have known about it? Another thing we can deduct from item descriptions is that the puppet Ranni's soul inhibits is modeled after Renna herself, so we can get a vague idea of what Renna must have looked like. However, Renna is specifically referred to as crone in the item description, which is a term used to describe an ugly witch. But looking at Ranni's puppet, I don't think it's a reach to claim she isn't that ugly. So this term crone might have other significance apart from describing her appearance. Sadly, this is pretty much as far as in-game information goes regarding Rena, so from now on, we're going to venture into theories we can make based on existing game information. As we know, Elden Ring is no stranger to referencing and taking big inspiration from real-life religious themes. And using that as a base of research, there's actually a theory that makes disturbingly much sense. You see, there's the concept of a goddess, dating back centuries, back to even ancient civilizations, called the Triple Goddess, the Maiden, the Mother, and the Crone. The theory states that Rena is actually the grandmother of Rani and the mother of Renala. There's two main contextual clues that point towards that conclusion. Firstly, the familiar name similarities we can find all over Elden Ring's lore, just like Melina, Miquella, and Messmer being the children of Marika and Radagon, and Rani, Rykard, and Radan being the children of Renala and Radagon. It is very plausible to believe that Rena was the name of Renala's mother, which explains the similarities and ties to Rani's name as well. But this alone isn't enough to make an Elden Ring theory foolproof, as there has also been speculation about Melina's ties to Marika purely based on the name similarity. Well, here's what makes this theory even more plausible. If we take the concepts of the triple goddess of the Maiden, Mother, and Crone, and apply them to the idea that Rena might be Rani's grandmother, there's way too much plausible evidence to be overlooked. You see, the entire concept of the triple goddess is closely related to the phases of the moon, and if we know one thing for certain, it's that the whole Carian family is obsessed with the moon. Additionally, as mentioned before, the triple goddess is made up of the Maiden, Mother, and the Crone, which perfectly aligns with these three Carian royal women, Rani being the Maiden, chosen as Empyrean and literal maiden to the Elden Lord that we eventually will become if we choose so. Renala being the mother, not only literal mother to Rani, but also the mother to all her sweetings hatching from her amber egg as a result of her fixation with rebirth. And lastly, we have Rena, who is specifically referred to as the Crone in the item description if you will remember. All these parallels only serve to add legitimacy to this theory. The triple goddess is said to hold power of the moon, the earth, and rebirth, which again we can perfectly align with Rena, Renala, and Rani. This theory would also serve to explain why Rena knew so much about the dark moon magic, which was a sorcery passed on specifically from Renala to Rani. Maybe Rena was the one who passed the dark moon magic down to Rani's mother in the first place. But why would Rena abandon her family and royal status to wander off into the woods where Rani meets her? Well, maybe Renala marrying Radagon was a sort of disappointment to her, as she saw the Golden Order as an opposing force to her pursuit of the moon. So she turned her back to the family. This would also add an extra layer of tragedy to Renala's story. Not only did she lose Radagon, but she may have also lost her own mother long before that, leaving her completely alone after Radagon's departure. On that fateful day, she met Rani in the woods, taking her in as a student, maybe even assisting her in scheming the plot against the Golden Order that would later become known as the Night of the Black Knives. And with that, we move into the final tier of the iceberg. Tier 8, Melina's mother. Now, the only character that might be more mysterious, while at the same time being even more significant to the story than Rena, is Melina. In Elden Ring, 3 different butterflies symbolize 3 key figures. The nascent butterfly, tied to Miquella, the Aeonia butterfly, representing Melania, and the smoldering butterfly, long believed to be Melina's, as she is the finger maiden of flame. However, with the DLC's release, many jumped to the conclusion that the smoldering butterfly in fact belonged to Messmer, the Lord of Fire. This assumption, however, overlooks a crucial detail. The DLC introduces a new butterfly, the Black Pyrefly, which is much more clearly tied to Messmer. This leaves the smoldering butterfly's true owner in question once more. I believe it still belongs to Melina. As a deleted item description from the DLC stated, Messmer, much like his younger sister, bore a vision of fire. This vision of fire, the urge to set the Erd Tree ablaze, ties in directly to Melina's own fate, therefore making her very likely to be Messmer's mentioned younger sister. Furthermore, we know that every child of Marika and Radagon is reflected in a butterfly, and the smoldering butterfly fits Melina's theme perfectly. But who then is Melina's mother? She states herself that she was born at the foot of the Erd Tree, and that inside the Erd Tree is where her mother gave her her purpose. a purpose she has sadly since forgotten. Now, who was the only mother we know of inside the Erdtree, frequently associated with granting purpose through grace? That's right, Marika. All of these points lead me to believe that Melina is another forgotten child of Marika, just like Messmer, a hidden, erased demigod. But that's not where Melina's story ends. In fact, that might be where it truly begins. Melina is dead. Melina states outright that she is merely a spirit without a body, and that her original true body was long ago burned. She says, "I am searching for the reason I yet live, burned and bodiless." But why is she dead? Who burned her? And why is it explicitly stated that she burned to death? To find the answer, we must look to her brother, Messmer. I believe Messmer and Melina were twins, the first children of Marika and Radagon, born before Marika became a god, back when she and Radagon were still separate entities. There is a scroll of white tree bark in the game that describes how one can ascend to godhood, stating, "A lord will usher in a god's return, and the lord's soul will require a vessel." This suggests that Radagon was the lord who helped Marika ascend to godhood, and in doing so they became each other's soul and vessel. But if there was a time when Marika and Radagon were separate, that means any children they had before that moment would have been born from two distinct parents. That would make Messmer and Melina the firstborn demigods long before Godfrey ever entered the picture. Messmer was born cursed, a vessel for the god of flame, much like Melina is a vessel for the god of rot. The god of flame is a cruel, demanding outer god, one that the fire giants worshipped. But Messmer resented his fate. In an attempt to rid himself of the curse, he fought against the fire giants alongside Godfrey, believing that by rejecting their flame, he could reject the god within him. But if the fire giant's god had chosen him as a vessel, this rebellion could only enrage it. Perhaps as punishment, the god of flame lashed out, consuming Messmer in uncontrollable fire, forcing him to be the very thing he hated. Much like Melina releases pure destruction through her outbursts of rot, Messmer could have unleashed huge outbursts of fire as a sort of punishment by the god of flame. And in one of these outbursts, at the foot of the Erdtree, Messmer could have burned Melina alive. Look closely at the entrance to the Erdtree. There are ominous burn marks, scars, that don't come from the later burning of the tree in-game. These burns could be the aftermath of that very event. Melina, mortally wounded, may have crawled inside the Erdtree, where before dying, her mother Marika gave her a purpose. But as her body perished and only her spirit remained, she lost her memories, explaining why she cannot recall her purpose when we meet her in-game. After witnessing the devastation of her own son's flames, Marika, terrified of Messmer's power, may have put that seal in his eye that he later breaks when we fight him, and also lock him away in the realm of shadow so that his fire could never again harm a demigod. This would explain why Messmer was not present in the base game, despite being a major demigod. He was erased from history, fallen from grace. But here's the most important part. Melina was revived through the Erdtree's power. The Erdtree is a vessel of rebirth and grace, a place where spirits linger. Melina says herself that she was born at the foot of the Erdtree. And what do we see throughout the game? The Erdtree sustains souls. This could mean that Marika did not just give Melina a purpose, but also allowed her to persist as a spirit. While her body was lost, the Erdtree may have anchored her soul, allowing her to remain in the lands between, despite death. And maybe through this she was indebted to the Erdtree, making her purpose of guiding us through grace even more undeniable. Melina, bound to us through grace, follows us to the forge of the fire giants, standing before the very flames that once consumed her. And if she kindles the flame herself, she embraces the same fate that once took her, willingly becoming the fire. This makes Melina's role in the game even more poetic. She was burned by fire, and yet she is the one who guides us to burn the Erdtree. Her existence is tied to the Erdtree's grace, yet her purpose is to set it ablaze. And when we face Messmer, we are fighting against the very man who took Melina's life. This makes our battle with Messmer more than just another boss fight. It is personal. We are carrying out the will of his dead sister. And when he falls, it will not just be another victory. It will be retribution.